Keanu Reeves sat comfortably in the plush chair, his signature calm demeanor radiating as he leaned slightly forward. The studio lights glowed softly around him, casting a warm hue over the set of one of America's most popular late-night talk shows. Across from him, the host, an energetic man known for his quick wit and playful banter, was firing off questions about Keanu's latest blockbuster movie. The audience laughed at the jokes and clapped enthusiastically whenever Keanu shared an anecdote about filming action scenes or working with his co-stars. But then, something unexpected happened. Midway through the interview, the host shifted gears. With a sly grin, he asked, "So, Keanu, you've been described as this Zen-like figure who seems to understand life better than the rest of us. If you could give advice to global leaders, right now, what would it be?" The room fell silent for a brief moment. It was clear the question caught Keanu off guard, but instead of hesitating, he took a deep breath and responded thoughtfully. "Well," Keanu began, his voice steady but tinged with emotion, "I think leadership isn't just about making decisions or holding power. It's about connecting with people, understanding their pain, their hopes, their dreams, and doing everything you can to lift them up." He paused, looking directly into the camera as if speaking to each viewer personally. The audience leaned, captivated by his sincerity. Then, almost casually, he added, "You know, I've been thinking a lot lately about Pope Robert Prevost." The mention of the new pope sent ripples through the crowd. Some people gasped audibly, while others exchanged confused glances. Pope Robert Prevost had only recently risen to prominence after being elected to lead the Catholic Church, and his appointment had sparked both excitement and controversy worldwide. Known for his progressive views and focus on unity, Pope Robert represented a fresh face in a role steeped in centuries of tradition. But no one expected Keanu Reeves, a Hollywood icon, to bring him up during a light-hearted entertainment segment. Sensing the intrigue building in the room, the host raised an eyebrow and said, "Oh, really? What about Pope Robert?" His tone was curious, inviting Keanu to elaborate further. Without missing a beat, Keanu continued, "There's something about him that feels different. He talks about compassion not as an abstract idea, but as a way of living. And honestly, I feel like we need more of that in the world today." As Keanu spoke, his words carried weight. There was no trace of pretense or grandstanding, just raw honesty. He went on to describe how Pope Robert's messages resonated deeply with him, especially during a time when so much division seemed to plague society. "He reminds me that even in our darkest moments, there's always a chance to come together, to find common ground," Keanu explained, his eyes softening as he reflected on these thoughts. "And that gives me hope." The audience erupted into applause, moved by Keanu's heartfelt remarks. Yet amidst the cheers, there was also a palpable sense of curiosity. Why had Keanu chosen to highlight Pope Robert specifically? Was it merely admiration for the pontiff's ideals, or was there something deeper beneath the surface? What made the moment even more intriguing was Keanu's delivery. Unlike his usual reserved self, he appeared unusually animated, as though the topic struck a personal chord. At one point, he paused mid-sentence, searching for the right words. When he finally spoke again, his voice carried a hint of nostalgia. "Pope Robert feels familiar in ways I can't quite explain," he admitted, leaving the audience hanging on every syllable. The host seized the opportunity to probe further. "Familiar? How so?" he asked, clearly sensing he was onto something. "Big." Keanu chuckled lightly, brushing off the question with a vague smile. "Let's just say, sometimes life has a funny way of bringing things full circle," he replied cryptically. This enigmatic statement left everyone wanting more. Social media lit up within minutes of the broadcast, with fans speculating wildly about what Keanu meant. Some theorized that he might have met Pope Robert in the past, while others wondered if the two shared a hidden connection. Whatever the truth was, Keanu's comments planted a seed of mystery that refused to fade. Little did anyone know this seemingly casual remark would soon unravel a story far richer and more meaningful than anyone could have imagined. The next morning, Snippets of Keanu Reeves' interview dominated headlines and social media feeds. Clips of him mentioning Pope Robert Prevost were shared millions of times, with fans and commentators dissecting every word he said. Memes flooded Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, some playful, others deeply reflective, as people tried to make sense of why the actor had singled out the new pope during a casual late-night chat. Was it just admiration for his leadership style? Or was there something more personal behind Keanu's words? Curiosity reached fever pitch when one particularly sharp-eyed journalist noticed how Keanu described Pope Robert as familiar. This single phrase became the focal point of countless articles and debates. Reporters began digging into Keanu's past, hoping to uncover any connection between the Hollywood star and the newly elected pontiff. What they found shocked everyone and added layers of intrigue to an already fascinating story. It turned out that decades earlier, long before Keanu Reeves became a household name, he had attended a Catholic school in Toronto. As a child growing up in a modest household, Keanu wasn't particularly religious, but he did participate in the rituals expected of students at his school. It was during this time that a young priest named Robert Prevost occasionally visited to teach theology classes. Back then, Father Prevost was still early in his career, known for his gentle demeanor and willingness to listen without judgment. He often encouraged students to ask questions about faith, morality, and life itself, a stark contrast to some of the stricter clergy members who prioritized rules over understanding. Keanu, like many kids his age, didn't think much of these visits at the time. But as reporters dug deeper, they discovered that Father Prevost had left a subtle yet lasting impression on the future actor. Former classmates recalled how Prevost once pulled Keanu aside after noticing the boy seemed troubled. At the time, Keanu was navigating a difficult period in his life. His parents' separation, financial struggles at home, and the challenges of fitting in at school. While details remained scarce, those who knew him back then remembered Keanu as a quiet, introspective child who kept much of his pain hidden beneath a polite exterior. In subsequent interviews, Keanu opened up about this chapter of his life, revealing pieces of the puzzle that tied him to Pope Robert Prevost. Speaking candidly to a prominent magazine, he admitted, "I don't remember everything from those days, but I do remember Father Prevost. He wasn't like the other priests. He didn't preach at you or tell you what to believe. Instead, he asked questions, real questions, and made you feel like your answers mattered." One memory stood out vividly in Keanu's mind. During confession one afternoon, a teenage Keanu poured out his heart to Father Prevost, confessing feelings of loneliness and uncertainty about the future. Rather than offering platitudes, Prevost listened intently and responded with words that would stay with Keanu for years to come. He told me, "You have a purpose even if you can't see it yet." Keanu recounted, his voice trembling slightly. "And whatever happens, never stop believing in yourself." Those simple sentences, spoken by a kind-hearted priest, planted a seed of resilience in the young boy's heart. As the world learned about this unexpected link between Keanu and Pope Robert, reactions ranged from awe to disbelief. Some praised the serendipity of their paths crossing again under such extraordinary circumstances, while skeptics questioned whether the story was embellished for dramatic effect. But for Keanu, the memories were real and profoundly meaningful. In another interview, he reflected on how surreal it felt to witness someone who had once been a small but significant figure in his life ascend to such a monumental role. "When I heard he'd become Pope, I couldn't believe it," Keanu confessed. "It's like life has a way of showing you things come full circle. You never know who will leave a mark on you or where they'll end up." The revelation sparked widespread fascination, not just because of the unlikely connection, but also because it humanized both men in ways few could have anticipated. For many, Keanu's story served as a reminder of the profound impact even brief encounters can have on our lives. Meanwhile, others marveled at the irony of fate. Here was Keanu Reeves, celebrated for his humility and kindness, finding inspiration in a man who now led one of the world's largest spiritual communities with those very same qualities. As the days passed, public interest only grew stronger. People began drawing parallels between Keanu and Pope Robert, noting how both men embodied values of compassion, empathy, and quiet strength. Fans speculated about whether the two might cross paths again in the future, given their intertwined histories. Would Keanu reach out to congratulate the Pope personally? Might they collaborate on charitable initiatives or discuss shared ideals? The possibilities seemed endless, fueling anticipation for what might happen next. Behind the scenes, however, Keanu appeared reluctant to dwell too much on the attention. True to form, he deflected praise and redirected focus toward the bigger picture. "This isn't about me," he insisted during a press conference. "It's about the message Pope Robert is trying to share with the world. If my story helps amplify that message, then I'm grateful." His humility only deepened the public's admiration for him, further cementing his status as a beloved figure whose authenticity shone through in everything he did. Little did anyone know, the most surprising chapter of this story was still unfolding. Unbeknownst to the public, plans were already in motion for Keanu and Pope Robert to meet face-to-face, an encounter that would reveal even more about their bond and leave an indelible mark on both their lives. But for now, the world watched and waited, eager to see what would happen next in this remarkable tale of destiny, compassion, and the enduring power of human connection. Weeks after Keanu Reeves's heartfelt revelation about his childhood connection to Pope Robert Prevost, the buzz surrounding their story showed no signs of fading. In fact, it only grew louder when news broke that Keanu had accepted an invitation to visit the Vatican. Officially, the trip was framed as a collaboration between the actor's charitable foundation and the Vatican's humanitarian initiatives. The announcement stated that Keanu would meet with key figures in the church to discuss ways to support marginalized communities worldwide. However, whispers of something more personal and far more intriguing began swirling almost immediately. For me, fans and skeptics alike, the prospect of Keanu Reeves setting foot inside the Vatican felt like the plot of a movie. Here was a man who had spent decades navigating the glitz and glamour of Hollywood, now stepping into one of the most sacred and historic institutions on Earth. Social media erupted with speculation. What would he wear? How would he act around the Pope? Would there be any awkward moments or perhaps something magical? The day of the visit arrived and cameras captured every step of Keanu's journey. Dressed simply in a dark suit and tie, he looked every bit the respectful guest as he entered St. Peter's Square. The grandeur of the Vatican loomed above him, its towering architecture and intricate details a stark contrast to the understated simplicity Keanu was known for. Yet despite the overwhelming majesty of his surroundings, Keanu appeared calm and composed, his trademark humility shining through. As he made his way through the hallowed halls, accompanied by Vatican officials, Keanu greeted everyone warmly, shaking hands and exchanging polite words. His demeanor struck those present as genuine. There was no trace of pretense or ego. When he finally reached the papal chambers for his private audience with Pope Robert Prevost, the atmosphere shifted. Noticeably, aides reported feeling an almost electric energy in the air, as though history itself was unfolding before their eyes. When Pope Robert emerged to greet Keanu, the scene was nothing short of extraordinary. The two men embraced warmly, their smiles radiating mutual respect and affection. For a moment they stood silently, holding on to each other as if savoring the weight of the occasion. Onlookers couldn't help but notice how natural their interaction felt, like old friends reuniting after years apart, rather than a global icon meeting the leader of the Catholic Church. Once seated, the pair launched into what witnesses described as an hour-long conversation behind closed doors. No one knows exactly what was said during that meeting, but snippets of information leaked out afterward. According to aides who overheard parts of the discussion, Keanu expressed gratitude for Father Prevost's kindness during his formative years. "I don't think I ever properly thanked you," Keanu reportedly told the Pope, his voice tinged with emotion. Pope Robert responded with equal sincerity, saying, "You didn't need to thank me. All I did was remind you of what you already knew, that you have a purpose." Their dialogue extended beyond nostalgia, delving into broader topics such as compassion, service, and the state of the world today. Both men shared a deep concern for humanity's struggles, from poverty and inequality to environmental crises and social division. They brainstormed ideas for meaningful action, discussing how faith, art, and activism could intersect to inspire change. Despite coming from vastly different worlds, Keanu and Pope Robert found common ground in their desire to uplift others. When the meeting concluded, Keanu stepped outside, blinking in the bright Roman sunlight. Reporters swarmed him, eager for details about the encounter. But true to his nature, Keanu kept his responses brief and enigmatic. "We talked about hope," he said simply, his eyes reflecting a mix of joy and introspection. Pressed for more specifics, he smiled and added, "Sometimes hope is enough." Though his answers left much unsaid, they resonated deeply with the public. People admired Keanu's ability to convey profound meaning without revealing too much, a skill that mirrored his performances on screen. Meanwhile, Pope Robert later addressed the meeting during a general audience, praising Keanu as a guiding light in turbulent times. He emphasized the importance of using one's platform for good, urging others to follow Keanu's example of humility and dedication. The fallout from the Vatican visit was immediate and immense. Clips of Keanu walking through St. Peter's Basilica went viral, alongside photos of him embracing Pope Robert. Commentators dissected every gesture, every word, searching for hidden meanings. Some speculated that the two might collaborate on future projects, while others wondered if Keanu's faith, or lack thereof, played a role in their bond. Regardless of the interpretations, one thing was clear. This meeting transcended mere celebrity spectacle. It symbolized something larger, a testament to the enduring power of human connection and the ripple effects of kindness. In the days that followed, Keanu returned to his usual routine, resuming work on his latest film project and continuing his philanthropic efforts. But those close to him noticed a subtle shift in his demeanor. There was a newfound sense of peace, as if the Vatican visit had provided closure to a chapter of his life he hadn't fully realized remained open. Friends confided that Keanu spoke often about the conversation with Pope Robert, describing it as transformative. "He reminded me of who I am," Keanu reportedly told a close associate, "and that's a gift I'll carry with me forever." Meanwhile, Pope Robert continued to champion causes aligned with the themes discussed during his meeting with Keanu. From addressing climate change to advocating for refugees, the pontiff amplified messages of unity and compassion, echoing the values Keanu embodied in his own life. Together, albeit indirectly, they inspired countless individuals to reflect on their roles in creating a better world. What started as a chance remark during a late-night interview had evolved into a powerful narrative of destiny, gratitude, and shared purpose. As the world watched these two remarkable figures, each influential in their own right, forge a bond rooted in authenticity and goodwill, it became evident that their story was far from over. Little did anyone know the next chapter would reveal even deeper layers of their connection, leaving an indelible mark on both their lives and the hearts of millions around the globe. Days after his historic visit to the Vatican, Keanu Reeves appeared on a popular morning talk show. The atmosphere in the studio was electric, with fans and journalists alike eager to hear more about his private meeting with Pope Robert Prevost. As Keanu walked onto the set, dressed casually in a simple black jacket and jeans, the audience erupted into applause. His presence commanded respect, not because of his fame, but because of the sincerity he exuded. This wasn't just another celebrity appearance. This was a moment of revelation. The host greeted Keanu warmly, thanking him for coming on the show. "Keanu," she began, leaning forward slightly, "you've been all over the news since your trip to the Vatican. People are dying to know what really happened during that meeting with Pope Robert." The room fell silent as everyone waited for Keanu's response. He took a deep breath, his expression thoughtful, before speaking. "I'll be honest," Keanu started, his voice steady but tinged with emotion. "That meeting meant more to me than I can put into words. It wasn't just about discussing humanitarian work or global issues. It went deeper than that. It felt like closure." He paused, collecting his thoughts, and then continued. "You see, When I was younger, I didn't fully realize how much Father Prevost, now Pope Robert, impacted my life. But looking back, I see it so clearly now. The host nodded, encouraging him to go on. "Tell us more," she urged gently. Keanu hesitated for a moment, as if weighing how much to share, but then he opened up in a way that left the audience spellbound. "Growing up, I faced challenges that probably weren't unique, but they felt overwhelming at the time," Keanu explained. "My parents' separation, financial struggles, trying to find my place in school, all of it weighed heavily on me. I didn't talk about it much, even to close friends. But one day, I found myself in confession with Father Prevost. I don't remember exactly what I said, but I do remember feeling safe enough to open up, and what he said to me changed everything." Keanu paused again, visibly emotional. "He told me, 'You have a purpose, even if you can't see it yet. Don't let anyone, including yourself, convince you otherwise.' Those words stuck with me through every hardship, every doubt. They reminded me to keep going, to believe in myself even when things seemed impossible. And now seeing him as Pope, it's surreal, like life came full circle." The audience listened intently, hanging on every word. Many people wiped away tears, moved by the raw vulnerability in Keanu's voice. For someone who had always been seen as a symbol of quiet strength, hearing him speak so openly about his struggles and the role Pope Robert played in helping him overcome them was deeply affecting. The host, clearly touched, asked, "Did you tell him all of this when you met? How did he react?" Keanu smiled softly, recalling the memory. "Yes, I did. When we sat down together, I thanked him, not just for those words, but for being there when I needed someone to listen. You know, sometimes kindness doesn't seem like much in the moment, but it can shape the course of someone's life. That's what he did for me." He went on to describe how Pope Robert responded. He smiled and said, "Keanu, you were always destined for greatness. I only reminded you of what God already knew." The actor chuckled lightly, shaking his head in disbelief. It sounds crazy, right? But hearing him say that, knowing where we both are now, it's humbling. It makes me think about how interconnected our lives are, how small acts of compassion can ripple outward in ways we never expect. As Keanu spoke, the audience could feel the weight of his words. This wasn't just a story about two men reconnecting decades later. It was a testament to the enduring power of empathy and faith. Whether or not viewers shared Keanu's beliefs, they couldn't deny the profound impact of his message. In a world often divided by differences, here was a reminder that kindness transcends boundaries and leaves lasting legacies. After the interview aired, reactions poured in from all corners of the globe. Social media lit up with posts praising Keanu's candor and Pope Robert's wisdom. Fans expressed gratitude for the story, saying it inspired them to reflect on their own lives and the people who had helped shape them. Some shared personal anecdotes about mentors, teachers, or strangers whose kindness had made a difference. Others pledged to pay it forward, vowing to extend compassion to those around them. Even critics who had initially dismissed the story as mere publicity were won over by its authenticity. One prominent columnist wrote, "What began as a curious mention during a late-night interview has evolved into something far greater, a narrative of hope, resilience, and human connection." Keanu Reeves and Pope Robert Prevost remind us that no act of kindness is too small, and no life is untouched by the threads of destiny. Meanwhile, Pope Robert addressed the growing interest in his bond with Keanu during a press conference at the Vatican. Speaking to reporters, he emphasized the importance of humility and service. "Keanu's journey is a beautiful example of perseverance and purpose," he said. "But let us not forget that each of us has a role to play in uplifting others. Whether through prayer, art, or action, we must strive to leave the world better than we found it." The pontiff also revealed that he and Keanu had discussed launching joint initiatives aimed at supporting vulnerable populations worldwide. Details remained vague, but the announcement sparked excitement among fans of both men. Could this unlikely partnership lead to meaningful change on a global scale? For Keanu, The experience served as a turning point, not just professionally, but personally. Friends noted that he seemed lighter, freer, as if shedding years of unspoken gratitude had brought him peace. In interviews, he spoke candidly about the lessons he'd learned from Pope Robert and how they continued to guide him. "He taught me to trust in the process of life," Keanu said, "to believe that everything happens for a reason, even if we don't understand it at the time. And now, I want to pass that lesson on to others." The public's fascination with Keanu and Pope Robert showed no signs of waning. Books, podcasts, and documentaries began exploring their story, analyzing the themes of fate, faith, and compassion that defined it. Yet amid all the attention, both men remained grounded, focusing on the work ahead rather than basking in the spotlight. What started as a fleeting comment during a late-night interview had blossomed into a movement, a call to action for humanity, to embrace kindness, unity, and purpose. And while the world eagerly awaited the next chapter in their extraordinary tale, one thing was certain: the bond between Keanu Reeves and Pope Robert Prevost would forever stand as a beacon of hope in an uncertain world. In the months following Keanu Reeves's emotional revelation about his connection to Pope Robert Prevost, their story continued to captivate hearts worldwide. What had begun as a seemingly casual mention during a late-night interview had evolved into something far greater, a testament to the enduring power of compassion, faith, and human connection. But rather than resting on the momentum of their newfound bond, both men channeled their shared values into action, launching initiatives that would leave a lasting impact on countless lives. Keanu and Pope Robert officially announced their collaboration during a joint press conference held at the Vatican. Surrounded by reporters from across the globe, they unveiled the Light Within Initiative, a groundbreaking partnership aimed at addressing some of the most pressing challenges facing humanity today, from combating poverty and hunger to supporting refugees and promoting mental health awareness. The program sought to bring together resources, expertise, and communities under one unified mission: to inspire hope and foster resilience. Speaking to the assembled crowd, Pope Robert emphasized the importance of collective effort. "We live in a world filled with pain and division," he said, his voice steady yet impassioned. "But within each of us lies a light, a capacity for kindness, empathy, and love. Through this initiative, we aim to ignite that light, reminding people that no matter how dark things may seem, there is always hope." Keanu echoed these sentiments, adding a personal touch to the message. "When I think back to my own struggles, I realize how much difference even a single moment of kindness made in my life." He shared, his trademark humility shining through. "Father Prevost, now Pope Robert, was one of those moments for me. And now, standing here with him, I want to pass that forward. Together, we can create spaces where people feel seen, heard, and valued." The announcement sparked widespread enthusiasm, drawing support from celebrities, activists, and everyday individuals alike. Donations poured in from around the world, while volunteers signed up to participate in various projects tied to the initiative. Schools incorporated lessons on empathy and service inspired by the program's core principles, while local organizations partnered with the Light Within Initiative to expand their reach. The ripple effects were undeniable, proving that when two influential figures unite for a common cause, the possibilities are limitless. One of the first major undertakings of the initiative was a global campaign called Hope Across Borders. Designed to assist displaced families and refugees, the campaign provided essential resources such as food, shelter, and education, while also offering emotional support through counseling services and community-building activities. Keanu personally visited several refugee camps, spending time with families and listening to their stories. His presence brought not only aid, but also a sense of dignity and solidarity. "These aren't just numbers or statistics," he told reporters after one visit. "They're human beings with dreams, fears, and hopes just like the rest of us. We owe it to them and to ourselves to stand together." Pope Robert, too, played an active role in the campaign, traveling to conflict zones and meeting with leaders to advocate for peace and humanitarian relief. His unwavering commitment to serving others resonated deeply with Keanu, who often praised the pontiff's courage and determination. "He doesn't just talk about compassion, he lives it," Keanu remarked during an interview. Being able to work alongside someone like that, it's humbling and inspiring all at once. As the months passed, the Light Within initiative expanded its scope, tackling issues such as climate change, access to education, and social justice. One particularly impactful project involved building sustainable schools in underserved regions, equipping students with tools and knowledge to build brighter futures for themselves and their communities. Both Keanu and Pope Robert participated in the groundbreaking ceremonies for several of these schools, symbolizing their dedication to empowering the next generation. Beyond the tangible outcomes, however, the true legacy of their partnership lay in the conversations it sparked. People from all walks of life began reflecting on the importance of kindness and purpose in their own lives. Social media buzzed with stories of individuals performing small acts of generosity, from paying for someone's meal to volunteering at shelters, all inspired by the example set by Keanu and Pope Robert. Hashtags like Spread the Light and Acts of Kindness trended globally, creating a virtual movement that mirrored the real-world efforts of the initiative. For Keanu, this period marked not only a professional milestone but also a deeply personal transformation. Friends and colleagues noted how energized and fulfilled he seemed, as though reconnecting with Pope Robert had reignited a sense of clarity and purpose within him. In interviews, he spoke openly about the lessons he'd learned throughout this journey. "Meeting Pope Robert again reminded me of who I am and who I want to be," he confessed. "It's easy to get caught up in the noise of life, but at the end of the day what matters most is how we treat each other. That's the legacy I want to leave behind." Pope Robert, meanwhile, continued to champion unity and inclusivity, using his platform to bridge divides and promote understanding. He frequently referenced Keanu as a shining example of how art and activism could intersect to drive positive change. "Keanu reminds us that everyone has a role to play," the Pope said during a speech. "Whether you're an actor, a teacher, a parent, or simply a friend, your actions matter. Together we can create a world rooted in love and compassion." By the end of the year, the Light Within initiative had touched millions of lives, earning accolades from governments, NGOs, and ordinary citizens alike. Yet despite the success, neither Keanu nor Pope Robert sought recognition for their efforts. Instead, they remained steadfastly focused on the work ahead, knowing that the fight for a better world was far from over. Looking back on everything that had transpired since that fateful late-night interview, it was clear that destiny had played a hand in bringing Keanu Reeves and Pope Robert Prevost together. Their story served as a powerful reminder that even the smallest acts of kindness can have profound repercussions, shaping lives in ways we may never fully comprehend. It wasn't just about fame or influence, it was about humanity, vulnerability, and the unbreakable bonds that connect us all. As Keanu once said during a quiet moment in an interview, "Life is funny like that. You never know who will walk into your life or re-enter it and change everything." For him and Pope Robert, their paths crossing again wasn't just coincidence, it was a calling. And through their shared vision, they proved that when compassion leads the way, anything is possible.